in this world, but the Indian moon landing has happened. Nobody's on board.
आदित्य एलोन भारत ने लॉन्च कर दिया। क्या आपको पता है कि आदित्य का फुल फॉर्म क्या है? देखिए, सूर्य को संस्कृत में आदित्य कहा जाता है। वैसे सूर्य का बहुत सारे नाम है, वैसे सूर्य का एक नाम है आदित्य। जो आदित्य एलोन है वो भारत से, पृथ्वी का बात नहीं करूंगी, भारत से 15 लाख किलोमीटर ऊपर उठ के सूर्य का पर्यवेक्षण करेगी। सूर्य का जो आउटर एटमॉस्फेयर है उसका पर्यवेक्षण करेगी। तो वो जो भी हो, इसका कोई रिएक्शन अभी तक मुझे नहीं मिला आउटर कंट्री से। लेकिन चंद्रयान 3 जो सफलतापूर्वक लॉन्च किया भारत ने, वो सफलतापूर्वक लैंड भी हुआ। इसका रिएक्शन पूरी दुनिया से झोली भर भर के आ रहा है। और खास तौर से अमेरिका, जो हर बात पर भारत को ताना देती थी, भारत को स्ट्रीट शीटर गाली देती थी, वो अमेरिका आज भारत की बहुत ज्यादा प्रशंसा कर रही है। तो इससे पहले कि हम अमेरिका का रिएक्शन देखें चंद्रयान 3 के सफलतापूर्वक लैंडिंग पर, हम पाकिस्तानी इंटेलिजेंस लोगों की कुछ बात सुन लेते हैं। आखिर सबसे भी कुछ सीखना चाहिए।
चांद पर जाना एक जायज काम है या नाजायज?
ये नाजायज है, नाजायज है, नाजायज है।
नाजायज काम है, चांद पे नहीं जाना चाहिए।
नहीं 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 नहीं, चांद मेरे मालिक ने बनाया है, इसमें चांद पे नहीं जाना चाहिए।
ओह अच्छा, चांद पर हमें नहीं जाना चाहिए। इससे पहले कि आपका दिमाग खराब हो जाए, मैं आपको दिखाना चाहता हूँ अमेरिकन मीडिया भारत की सफलतापूर्वक चंद्रयान की लैंडिंग के बाद क्या रिएक्शन देती है।
India has landed this. Are we in another moon race? I mean, what do you see with this, I guess, rush back?
India's feat is phenomenal also due to how little they've spent. The budget for the Chandrayaan 3 mission was around $74 million. That's smaller than the amount spent on the Hollywood films Gravity or Interstellar.
इन्होंने बारबी मूवी का नाम नहीं लिया। बारबी मूवी जो एक बच्चों का मूवी है, उसे बनाने में भी चंद्रयान से ज़्यादा खर्चा हुआ है। तो आप सोच सकते हैं कितनी कम खर्चे में भेजी गई ये रॉकेट फिर भी सक्सेस हो गया। तो जज्बा होना चाहिए, बात पैसों की नहीं है।
Russia's space agency budget was around $2.9 billion last year, while China spent an estimated $12 billion. And NASA, which wants to land people on the moon by 2025, is expected to fork out $93 billion in getting there.
But India landed on the south pole of the moon, and experts believe there could be ice, mineral deposits, valuable elements there.
Part of this race, though, is, the nation that gets there first, they set the rules of the game.
That's why today, even though Russia's Sergei Lavrov congratulated his Indian counterpart, there was no hint of a smile, because Russia's attempt to get to the South Pole failed this weekend. And while Moscow has a pact with China on space, in June, Modi signed India up to the Artemis Accords, an American-led treaty that seeks international cooperation and peace in space.
Yeah. Good for India. They should
Great for India, yeah.
Great
really.
for India. Mike.
There it is. It's a big moment for India in terms of their position in this world, but the Indian moon landing has happened. Nobody's on board this craft, by the way, in case you were wondering.
To join this fraternity, but to go now to the South Pole.
Yeah, so the South Pole's big, Victor, because of ice. There's ice there, so the interest with ice is that it can be possibly made into drinking water to support crews that would go there, astronauts that would go there, and also could be turned into rocket fuel to use the moon as a place to launch to further locations out in the cosmos. So that is the great interest with the South Pole, and no one's been able to land there yet. This is the first time a country has pulled that one off. So this is big news, and looking forward to what they'll find out there.
And what are they trying to find out there?
Well, if they can find that ice and learn more about it, how it's composed, of what form it's in, where it is exactly, and maybe how they can process it into drinking water and how they can maybe process it into fuel. Also, just the orbital mechanics, the physics of getting to the reason it's so difficult is because it's a difficult place to get to based on the math, the physics, the orbital mechanics. It's harder to get there than it is toward the center of the moon where we've landed previously. So hopefully they'll share all that information. I would expect they would. What the terrain is like, if there's any atmosphere there at all, any traces of any elements there. So all of these things will help us understand the South Pole, which is of great interest as a possible landing location, not only for more spacecraft like this, but also for people in the future.
Yeah. It's just...
And for prestige, for national prestige, India is going to, this is a great accomplishment for them. And also strategically, economically, to see what resources there, and can we use it as a place to move to other places in the cosmos to launch from there. So I think what we're seeing is that it's possible. Things are we can't get there. For the last 50 years, it's been, it's tough to get there and so on. But now that we see it's possible, more people are thinking about what they can do there. And so that's why I think we're seeing this heightened interest, particularly in that location on the moon. But I hope it's not really a race. I hope it's cooperation. It's not an easy thing to do. This is the first time a country's been able to pull it off. Hopefully they'll share that information, and hopefully we can go together. It's a huge undertaking, and I hope it's done as a team between different countries around the world.
Moodley reporting there. Dr. Namrata Goswami is an author and professor based in Alabama who specialises in space policy and international relations. I spoke to her earlier and I began by asking how much of a triumph this was for India and what it means for its competitors, Russia and China.
For India, it's a triumph because it's a completely self-reliant end-to-end space capacity that India has built. So on its own, indigenously. So it's a big triumph. And also, it now tells you that India has moved ahead of Russia. It showcases to you that India has now that capacity for autonomous landing and docking. For China, it's a very interesting strategic period because China is planning to send a mission to the South Pole next year called the Chang'e 6. That particular mission will also do exactly what India has done, autonomously land as well as collect samples. So the fact that India succeeded a year earlier gives India and the Artemis Accord signatories a year ahead of understanding the lunar terrain and looking for space resources as well.
In terms of the practical purpose of the mission, number one aim to find water, which is thought to be on the South Pole of the moon, and then use that as a launch pad to explore deep space. Is that your reading of it?
The experiments on the rover is to study the lunar surface for not just water ice, but also to study lunar resources like aluminium, titanium, iron ore, silicon to without any doubt prove that lunar regolith, which is soil, has it. So once confirmed, this is going to be actually utilized for further missions. So all this is going to help in terms of these deep space missions as well.
इस तरह की और भी वीडियो आपके पास लाते रहेंगे। तब तक के लिए जय श्री राम। हो सके तो चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर दीजिएगा। चैनल का नाम है आर्य चंद्र राणा।